number of U.S. states that are now opposed to taking in Syrian refugees. And, you know, the president has said that we should take in about 10,000. That list is getting longer. Now, 33 states have joined that chorus saying, not here. And today, Speaker of the House Paul Ryan says that he plans to bring legislation to create a pause, just a pause for now, in this U.S. refugee program. Here he is.
Many of these refugees are the victims of terrorism themselves.
Islamic terrorism believes they are at war with us, and so we must wage a war against them and win.
Refugees are pouring into our great country from Syria. We don't even know who they are.
Slamming the door in their faces would be a betrayal of our values.
Stop the flow of Syrian refugees into this country.
They could be ISIS, they could be anybody. What's our president doing? Is he insane?
Remarkable. One of those 33 states is Ohio. Ohio governor and 2016 GOP presidential candidate Governor John Kasich goes on the record for us tonight from Boston. Governor, good evening. Good to have you here.
Hi, Martha.
Hi there. Talk to us about your decision and why you believe that there should be at least a pause, that you don't want to let any of these Syrian refugees into your state.
Well, Martha, you know, one of my daughters said to me last night, Daddy, why have you decided not to let them in? And I said, Reese, the reason why I've decided is because we don't know who they are. We don't know where they come from. We can't really trace them. And the last thing we want to do is bring them into Ohio or bring them into the neighborhood right where we live or in our friends' neighborhoods, and then bad things happen. So we need to take a pause on this. And Martha, you know, I've in some quarters have been criticized for having a big heart. I do have a big heart, but I also have a pretty good brain, and it seems to me as though it makes all the sense in the world to take a pause on this so we can determine who these people are. And until our intelligence officials tell us clearly that we're in a position where we can determine who they are.
Yeah. You know, I'm curious what you thought when you watched the president, or you know, watched it after the fact, perhaps yesterday when he spoke in Turkey. And he talked about the fact that this is just, you know, it's a handful of radicals. He said these are just, you know, a group of people who are seeking glory, and they're very adept at social media. What did you think about the way he characterized this group?
Well, Martha, look, I really believe we need a coalition made up not only of NATO forces, but also the Saudis, the Jordanians, the Egyptians, the Gulf states. And we cannot wait. I believe we need to go and move with air power and on boots on the ground to destroy ISIS where they exist, particularly in Iraq and Syria. And in the short term, I would support no-fly zones. I've proposed them with sanctuaries for refugees not to have to leave, to be defended by people like the Jordanians, people like the Kurds, and perhaps some humanitarian assistance to the Jordanians and the Saudis if they will look out for these people. But the president, I mean, look, at the end of the day, Martha, this is an attack on Western civilization. We saw today that the Germans emptied their stadium. Yep. This is not going to go away, and you've got to go to the root of this problem, and then you have to win the war of ideas. The Judeo-Christian Western ethic needs to be promoted throughout the world to let people know what we're for. Freedom of speech, freedom to gather, equality for women, so many things, and not the path to death like ISIS represents.
Well, you know what? The president would say, everything that you just mentioned is in my plan. And he would say, you know, folks like you are popping off, was the expression that he used yesterday. And, you know, he basically was irritated. He said, look, we're doing all these things. So everybody just back off, essentially.
Well, first of all, he did say that the no-fly zone was a consideration, but then who would manage the no-fly zone on the ground? I've already said it ought to be Kurds, Jordanians, other people from the Middle East who can do that. Secondly, there's no indication that we're going to put a coalition together to go and destroy ISIS. I not only believe it ought to be comprised of our NATO partners, but also friends and allies or people with common purpose in the Middle East, because this is an existential crisis that affects countries in the Middle East. Of course, it affects the West, Martha, and the longer we wait, the more we're going to have to pay later, because ultimately we are going to have to do this. There's no way around it. And when we do it, we also need to lead with good ideas about who we are in the West and do both of those things together, and it'll work.
Well, it's a pretty heavy lift to get some of those parties on board, and they haven't been that willing yet.
Got to work it. That's what diplomacy is. That's what a leader does, Martha. He brings people together and explains the bigger purpose and the vision. And let me tell you, we have no choice. We can't cower, we can't hide, we can't run away, and we can't delay. And I hope the president will get that message and that we can act with America being a leader, which we've always been, to confront these giant issues throughout our history.
Governor, thank you. Good to see you tonight.
Okay, Martha. Thank you.